line this morning. Thanks so much for your, Governor, for your leadership on this issue and the grocery tax. Is there any chance we'll see this yet this session?
My hope, Greg, is that the legislators start listening to the people of South Dakota. Overwhelmingly, the citizens of our state want the sales tax repealed on groceries. We're one of only 7 states left that still tax food. All of our surrounding states do not charge sales tax on food. In fact, it's interesting, if you go to the borders of our state, South Dakotans go over the border into their neighboring states to get their groceries so that they can save money because of inflation and all the problems that we're seeing in the nation. And they got to save every dime that they can. The legislators have brought forward other proposals, but they're not ones that prioritize the people who actually live here in our state and treat everybody the same. So that's been frustrating to watch because they're truly not listening to the people, and they're ignoring the fact that in 2 years, repealing the sales tax on groceries will be on the ballot and it will pass at that point in time. So if they're going to cut a different tax this year, they're going to have to know they have to come back and be able to afford 2 tax cuts in the next 2 years, because the grocery sales tax will be eliminated on the ballot. And I just don't understand why they aren't being more thoughtful in how they approach our budgeting process in the state.
Governor Kristi Noem is my guest this morning. I think you would release a poll numbers that showed this is an immensely popular idea with the people of South Dakota.
Well, it is because they recognize it's a permanent tax cut. And, that's one of the reasons the legislators probably don't want to do it. It's hard for the government to give up money and to give it back to people, but it is the people's money. And that's one of the discussions we've been having up here in the Capitol this year. Every single year I watch lobbyists show up in special interests. They come into this Capitol and they pay people money to sit in committees and to argue to get more money for their special project or their special industry or their, provider group or for their education lobby or whatever it is. But when's the last time somebody really came up here to the Capitol and argued for the people who get up every day and go to work and pay their taxes and said, you know what, they deserve to be able to keep some more dollars in their pocket? We've permanently grown our economy. Our population is growing at 5 times the national average. We've got businesses thriving, incomes going up faster than anywhere else. We've got historic surpluses that will permanently be there beyond what we've had in the past. It's time to let the taxpayers keep more money in their pocket. And when you do that, it's like giving everybody in the state of South Dakota a raise, giving them an income increase, which they certainly can use considering who's in the White House right now and how the federal government's so busy taking money out of their pockets.
Governor Kristi Noem is my guest, and we're talking about she is offered she would like to see a repeal on the grocery tax. And you and I have talked about this. It seems that in these most recent days, these final days of the legislature, Governor, we have heard lawmakers that are talking about, sales tax and, a percentage, a small portion of the sales tax, cutting those kinds of things, which is all great. I'm all in favor of tax cuts. I love to see people keep more of their own money. But at the same time, it seems to me it's pretty late in the legislature to be having those kinds of really meaningful kinds of conversations.
Well, we're going to have to, because we got to come up with a budget here this week. And I've told the legislature very clearly that I was not going to do a temporary tax cut, that it had to be permanent. I think that's why the Senate changed their position on Thursday. They dropped their temporary tax cut. Now they've gone to just writing checks to homeowners. They want to write a $425 check to every homeowner in the state, which I don't really understand it. That feels a little, I don't know, Governor Newsom-ish, out in California, just writing checks to people and only picking that homeowners get the check. Anybody who rents an apartment or a single mom or senior citizens living on fixed incomes, or even people who have ag land, farmers won't get that benefit on their ag land. Commercial property owners won't get that benefit. It's just as specifically targeted to those who own their own homes. And I don't understand why they want to pick winners and losers. That's not really the job of the government. Our job is to treat people equitably. Now, the Senate, has decided to write checks. The House is proposing a 30-cent tax reduction on every $100 spent. And That's, a proposal that they have that would be out there permanently. The problem with that, Greg, is that also gives us a tax cut to non-residents and to tourists and to visitors too. So, I would prefer that we look at tax reform that actually benefits people who live here in South Dakota. It focuses on them, and that's the grocery sales tax repeal. And we have a situation where we are one of the last states to address this. Yes, it would be a permanent tax cut, but people shouldn't have to pay taxes on their food to put food on the table, and it's the fair thing to do and treats everybody equally.
Governor, you may have made a pretty good point that if the legislature does not do this, voters are likely to do it themselves. Are lawmakers hearing from residents of the state about this issue?
I think they are, but I also think that people of South Dakota are busy working and, aren't busy calling the legislature on important things like this. The House has a phone number that people can call. I'd love it if they would. The South Dakota House of Representatives is 605-773-3851. If people do care about this issue, which they should, it's our tax policy, and they should call the House and let them know. And then the Senate number is 773-3821. They're going to be in meetings. They're going into session at 9 o'clock this morning. They'll be debating tax policy and how they're spending money. I've been very clear to them. They've been spending all this extra money like crazy this year up here, passing bills for all their pet projects. And I've just told them clearly that at the end of the day, whatever budget they propose to me, for it to become law, I have to sign it. So, if they embrace a spending spree or a temporary tax cut, they don't give us something that's really meaningful for the people of South Dakota. I don't have to sign this budget, and we can sit here until July. I don't have anywhere to go. I can sit here and argue about it, but I'm not going to sign a budget that I don't think is good for the people of South Dakota.
So what would, and if you, I totally take you at your word. Some lawmakers may not, but I certainly do believe you when you say that you just won't sign it if it doesn't include some of these things. What would that mean for the state in the event that happens?
Well, it's been a long time. It's been, I think it was Governor Buelow was the last one who didn't sign a budget at the end of legislative session, but it means that we have until July 1st to pass a bill that would fund state government. So, they would probably stay here through the weekend. Maybe, if they went home, we'd call them back into session next week. I'd call them back into session until they get this thing done. So I know that by the end of session, they don't want to stay in Pierre, but we have to do our job. We have a constitutional requirement to pass a balanced budget and to pay our bills. And here in South Dakota, they're really capitalizing on the fact that our economy has grown and that we're doing better than any other state in the country. The problem is that it's the people who live here who did that. It's the citizens that got up every day and went to work throughout this pandemic, and they took risks and expanded their businesses and hired workers and took care of people. Those are the people that did this. It wasn't the legislators. And so I want the legislators to remember that they should recognize that when they're looking at tax policy and give the citizens of this state the opportunity to keep more of their own money in their pockets.
Governor Kristi Noem is my guest. And Governor, I'm going to ask you again if you wouldn't mind repeating those phone numbers and that encourage folks to, if they are in support of the grocery tax and they'd like to see, pay less when they go to the supermarket, they should call their lawmakers. Yeah,
sure. They go into session at, I think, 9 o'clock this morning. But if you can call the House legislature, House of Representatives, and leave a message for your representative, that number is 605-773-3851. Go ahead and call them and say, I'd really like you to permanently cut our taxes. I think it is time that we join the other states that have already eliminated the sales tax on groceries. The phone number for the Senate is 773-3821.
And if you miss those, don't be afraid to call us here. We've got those. You can call us here at 336-1320. We'll be happy to pass those along. Governor, what have I missed that I should have asked this morning?
Well, Greg, I just appreciate you talking about it. It's important to a lot of people. And the one thing is that I'm not in the business of picking winners and losers. By repealing the sales tax on groceries, it treats everybody in the state the same. And a lot of people that are low and middle income spend a lot more of their budget every single week on food because they just don't have a lot of extra money. They're trying to put food on the table. It helps a lot of those folks who maybe don't own their own home. They're single moms. Maybe both parents are working to pay the bills. A lot of our senior citizens are struggling to pay their food costs right now because of inflation. By repealing the sales tax on groceries, we help every single one of them. I'm pretty disappointed in where the Senate and the House have ended up. I just want them to know that I'm not going to give up on making sure we have the right tax policy for South Dakota going forward.
Governor Kristi Noem, again, Governor, thanks a million for your time this morning explaining it and your support of that cut in the grocery tax. Very much appreciated, Governor.
You bet. You have a fantastic day.
You too. Take care.